So, welcome everyone to our Spring Shed 2023 introductory call. We're very excited, as I was saying, to have so many people live with us, but it's also, if you're listening to the recording, we hope that you will enjoy this and learn what we are planning with the Spring Shed of 2023, because the first year of doing this was in 2022. The four of us led 130 women of all ages and stages for 3 weeks. It was 21 days last year, but during the shed, we were all having too much fun and enjoying it too much. So we actually extended it to four weeks. So we saw what worked and we decided how we wanted to make it better. And so we're revisiting it all this year, and the revisit is always better, we think. But before we get started, I'd like to invite you just to settle, as we're all coming from busy days and busy times. And if you are busy making dinner or doing other things, just to perhaps pause. And I invite you just to take a deep breath in through your nose. And as you breathe out through your mouth, just feel the breath settling in your body and even settling down to your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair, wherever you find yourselves, and just taking a couple of breaths and just allowing the words of this poem, the words of a Hopi elder, just to land. They're so relevant today as they were when they were written. You have been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell the people that this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. And do not look outside yourself for the leader. Then he clasped his hands together, smiled, and said, "This could be a good time. There's a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel that they are torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know that the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above the water. And I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time for the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So once again, just to welcome you, Nat, you can unshare the screen so that we can see all the names and faces in this room. And this is the basis of our spreadsheet, of our Spring Shed, not our spreadsheet. Life is always busy and there's always a lot going on. There's never a perfect time to do something like this, and there's seldom even a good time. We all will have our highs and our lows, our work time, our holiday time, and then there seems to be a more intense work time after holiday time. So really, it's very difficult to ever find a time, and it's up to us to learn to navigate our way through this all, because this is unfortunately how life is going to continue for all of us, well, fortunately or unfortunately. And so there's no one coming to save us. There's no magic pill. There's no one getting it right even. We're all in this together, and now we have to choose how we're going to navigate this river and how we're going to find our flow. Is it going to be with fear, with self-judgment and loathing, with holding on tight, scared to show ourselves, never getting it right, always feeling not good enough? Or are we going to navigate our river with flow, understanding more about our bodies and minds and how they work best and how to navigate them and regulate them so that we live with more ease and grace and joy and lightness? And as we learn to flatten our glucose curves, our sugar curves and spikes, so we realize how closely they're aligned to our emotional curves and particularly spikes. Even though we often blame them on PMS and menopause, often they are so closely related. And so closely tied in with our emotional extremes. And the shed, so in the shed, we're learning and practicing tools for both the physical and the emotional regulation. And it's not just about weight loss. In fact, it's not about weight loss at all. Although that's what will happen. This is about learning physical and emotional regulation tools. And we do it much better together. I'm sure we've all tried to do this on our own, and it's hard and it's seldom effective, but the time for the lone wolf is over. And this is also why we've decided to lead this together. And who are we? So just to introduce myself, for those who don't know me, I'm Nicola Elwood. In fact, let me see if I can pin myself so that you can actually see me. And I'm Nicola Elwood. I'm a physiotherapist. I specialized in sport and spinal physio, and then went much more into women's health physio, mindfulness, and I'm a mindfulness and breathwork practitioner. And I teach feminine wisdom courses where we really look at and understand our cycle and the wisdom of our cycles and the magic that lie within them, our menstrual cycle, our sort of monthly cycle, nature's cycles. We also look at our pelvic floors and what's really going on down there. Everything from incontinence and prolapse to orgasm, and everything in between. I'm also a Terra Wellness advocate, and I use and love the oils because they've empowered me so much, and they really have made me a healer in my own home. And they've given our children confidence to be their own healers as well. So just a brief thing about my journey. In my 20s, I had developed terrible eczema, which started on my forehead and spread all across my forehead and rapidly spread to other parts of my body. It was a very terrible time for me, a very difficult time. And I went to see a number of practitioners and dermatologists and alternative practitioners. And it turned out that I had a huge sensitivity to formaldehyde, which is a preservative family. And so many of the chemicals that are in that family, which are preservatives in soaps and creams and shampoos. And I suddenly was a huge awakening to me as to what I was putting on and in my body, on and in my home. Because everything from creams and body lotions to Stay Soft to washing powder all really aggravated my skin. And so this led me down a path of a much more holistic view on health and healing, and also really understanding toxic load and its effect on our bodies. And our toxic load is a little bit like a bath, and it fills up over time, but we don't really feel it filling up. We feel the same as that toxic load fills up, and then suddenly that bath starts overflowing. So maybe going down the little outlet pipe, but that becomes too much for that. So then it just starts overflowing. And my overflow was my eczema. And for others, the overflow can be things like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or digestive issues. And this is what we're really going to be educating and empowering ourselves on in the next 4 weeks of the shed, really bringing a consciousness to what we're putting on and in our bodies. So that's me. And then to introduce you to Nikki Lefson-Hutton, who'll be speaking next. She's a clinical psychologist. She's also a functional medicine health coach, which is such an amazing combination, really understanding how food can affect our brain and our mind and how we think. She's a culinary nutrition expert as well. And anyone who's been privileged enough to have a meal at Nikki's home will know that she turns out the most amazing, delicious dishes that we all ask for the recipes afterwards, especially because she always tells us how easy they are, which mostly they are, but she's going to be sharing some of her lovely recipes and insights into in the spring shed. And she and I taught a year-long mindfulness and breathwork program together at Rodine, along with some other practitioners. So that's Nix, who will speak next. Well, actually, Nix, do you want to speak next, and then I'll introduce the others in between? I will unpin myself, and maybe you want to pin yourself.
You know, I want to introduce Sal and Didi, and then I'll kick off.
Okay.
So you have an idea of.
Yeah, that's what I planned. But then, okay, so the Sally Knott is also leading with us. She's an integrative nutrition health coach, and she's a chef and a food technologist. And I remember going to visit Sally when we were both living in London, but she'd gone over to Ireland for a few months to do a wonderful Ballymaloe cooking course. And Sal also turns out the most amazing food, especially she's got a younger family, and it's sort of really family-friendly food that her kids all adore, and all the families who visit her all adore. So she's also, I try very hard not to become too intimidated in Nick's and Sal's homes about all their wonderful food and their knowledge of food. So Sal will be leading sharing a lot of the recipes and how to bring this into our home, along with a lot of health coaching input on sleep and self-care and many other things. And then Didi Magoshua is a life and business coach. She's also a mindfulness and breathwork practitioner. In fact, we met on our 2-year Institute of Mindfulness in South Africa practitioner course. And so we became mindfulness practitioners together. And Didi's now on the board of EMISA, on the Institute of Mindfulness. Didi's a vegetarian and a very, very gorgeous, well, they're all gorgeous ladies. I feel very privileged to lead with them. But she's got a very gorgeous son who is, she's got 2 gorgeous sons, but one is, the one I know best is 16, I think, Didi, and he's an amazing sportsman and a vegetarian, which I think speaks a lot because there are not many young men who would be able to do that, and somehow Didi's helped him to navigate his way as a vegetarian. It was entirely his choice, but so that he can have enough energy and stamina on all his sport and his tennis, being a vegetarian. So I think that also speaks volumes, because all our boys want is generally meat. But we are all daughters and sisters and mothers to either adult children or teens or tweens. We've all had babies and fur babies, and we all live busy lives too. And so we're all in this together and doing this together. So just to answer tackle one or two questions up front, the biggest question that I've had in the last few weeks as we've launched the shed is, how much time does it take? And I don't know whether I'll have to join any live calls, and how's it run? It's all run off a WhatsApp group. We all show up in it. We share videos, short videos, some inspiration. We show some recipes, meal plans, and this is all posted first thing in the morning between 6 and 7 a.m. So every morning is something from us. And we give you a little bit of guidance up front before this, as the shed starts, but we guide every day at 7 a.m. But then this is an interactive WhatsApp group, because that's where the magic happens. So people can interact as much or as little as they want to, but you just know that the important stuff, the stuff we're posting, is from 6 to 7 in the morning. But so much of the magic happens from other people's experiences or input and things. So that's how we do it. So that means you can do the spring shed completely in your own time. There's no limitations around where you have to be, how you do it. No fixed times for anything and no fixed rules. And then the next question is, because all 4 of us are actually doTERRA wellness advocates, and we all use and love the oils in our homes and our families all the time. And we'll be using them because we really feel that they enhance the shed, enhance our shed, and it's a springboard for shedding and for our growth and for sort of our regulation after that. But oils, the doTERRA essential oils aren't essential. You don't have to have them. We'll definitely be giving tools and hacks and alternative swap-ins for people who don't have the oils. And I'll talk a little bit more about the oils and our protocols at the end. And if you don't have the oils, but you want to start with the oils, particularly with it's a little detox kit that we'll have, I'm also going to talk about that a little bit at the end. So for now, I'm just going to pass over to Nix, and she's going to start to tell us a little bit more about what the next 4 weeks will hold and some of the food aspects of it.
Thanks, Nix, and welcome everybody. It's so exciting to be amongst such, I can't see any men, but I can't see everybody. So I'm going to say, all these beautiful women, thank you for giving us this opportunity to share. So a little bit about my journey. I think my journey started around the age of 10 when my dad went running and had a massive heart attack and died. He'd been a heavy smoker and had a sweet tooth and loved red wine. Not that the last two maybe impacted him too much. My mom then developed a number of allergies in response to the grief and the stress that she was under with bringing up 2 children at the age of just 33. I'm surrounded by many family members who suffer from anxiety. And so my fascination with health and wellness began, and I suppose a bit of a fascination of keeping people well. And my interest in the mind-body connection. I think over the years, since I've had my children, I've studied, I've definitely got a strength of a love of learning. So I've studied homeopathy and Bach remedies and oils, and as you've heard, meditation and breathwork, and then the functional medicine and culinary nutrition. And I'm busy studying something called TRE, which is attention and tremor release. So constantly adding to my repertoire of tools. But I think through it all, the one thing that stands out is the importance of mind and body connection. And when we focus on one, that we never forget the other. And hence my very holistic approach and the way I work. Stats that I found recently stated that 6 in 10 adults have a chronic disease and 4 in 10 adults have 2 or more chronic diseases. And most of these can be prevented by some lifestyle changes. And this is what the Shed is really all about, just tweaking our lifestyle so that we can improve the way we live and thrive. I like to assess myself and help my clients look at themselves using what I call my seeds. And I like the word seeds because it's an analogy for health and growth. And seeds stands for sleep, eating, exercise and movement, de-stressing, and social connection and supplements. So today I'm going to focus on the food part of the Shed. Sal and I will both have a lot of input when it comes to food on the Shed, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of things that we're going to highlight. So primarily the Shed is around detoxing. So we want a time where we rest our body and take out more of the toxic food. And by that, I'm talking about gluten, sugar, dairy, processed foods, colorants, flavorants, and alcohol and coffee. I know those are often the hard ones for people. And why do we do that? Largely because a lot of these foods are inflammatory. They cause inflammation in our system. And we know that long-term inflammation leads to disease and chronic illness. So inflammation can lead to things like leaky gut, autoimmune, obesity, high blood pressure, amongst other things. In fact, I saw an article recently which stated that inflammatory foods are said to increase a woman's depression risk by 49% and an anxiety risk by 80%. So that's worth holding in mind. And that's just the mood component. So in the next couple of days, I encourage you to start decreasing these foods, and especially alcohol and coffee, to just be a little bit more mindful as to how much you're taking in, and to try and decrease that number, or perhaps swap out some of the caffeinated to the decaf when it comes to coffee. On the Shed, we'll provide you with a list of foods that we recommend that you eat, and then some that we recommend you stay away during the Shed. We'll give you recipes and cooking demos for some quick and inspiring meals. So the first 2 weeks, or all 4 weeks, really focus on heroing the veggies. So we want to kind of hero your veggies and then add clean proteins, fibers, and fats. And why do we want to hero veggies? Well, they are packed with phytonutrients, minerals, and vitamins. So I always say to my kiddies and my clients, eat a rainbow every day, because if we can get a cross-section of color, we can really add that wonderful benefit of everything that comes from the different colors. And a cleaner diet means a decrease in symptoms and long-term illness. Some optionals in the shed. We have an amazing discount code for anybody who wants to start off slightly more stringent or stricter with a juice/soup fast. So we have a 3, 5, or 7-day option, and there's a discount code for that. If you're somebody who battles with portion sizes and really does want to decrease a fair bit of weight, we do encourage a calorie counting app, and then to eat in a time restricted window, or otherwise known as intermittent fasting. I don't like to use either of those, intermittent fasting or time restricted, because I feel the word fast and restriction just spins my head a little bit. And I think how we speak is so powerful. So I like to call it eating in a window. Feels a little bit less punitive. I recently was speaking to somebody who said she released 5 kilos rather than lost, because after all, what we lose, we often go and try and find again. And when it comes to weight, none of us really want to do that. So yeah, eating in a window will be a proponent, eating in a sort of 8 to 12 hour window, which is very manageable. Eat dinner at 7 and don't eat breakfast before 7 the next day. And then our last important component is the blood sugar balancing component. So this is a little bit more new than what we saw last year, but all the health gurus are really talking about blood sugar balancing. And research is showing that the dysglycemia, or the highs and the lows of our blood sugar, is actually what's causing major aging. So we're going to give you a little bit, a couple of tweaks and weekly hacks as to certain things that you can do to tweak the way you eat and what you eat in terms of balancing that. And research is also showing that our short-term benefit of flattening our curve leads to decreased hunger, decreased cravings, better energy, better sleep, and memory. And in the long term, we know that these spikes and troughs certainly are leading to aging, mood disorders, weight gain, skin stuff like eczema, acne, amongst other things. So that's an exciting kind of new area that we're going to look at, and that will really be highlighted in the 3rd and 4th week, but we're going to bring that in little tweaks from the beginning. And then we will also introduce doTERRA's new amazing MetaPower system, which I recently tested. I was a little bit skeptical when I first heard about doTERRA's MetaPower, but they're always very cutting edge, and it is all to do with blood sugar balancing. And the more I read and hear the health gurus talk, they're all talking the same language. I was recently overseas for 4 weeks visiting family and friends, and I thought I'd test out MetaPower. So although I was eating all the wrong things that I usually don't include in my diet, the glutens, the ice cream, whenever I had an opportunity, the dairy, the extra coffee and alcohol, I used the MetaPower collagen every day and the little capsule, the 4 carb heavy meals, and then chewed the MetaPower gum in between. And I was really, really surprised when I got on the scale after a month of traveling and I hadn't put on a kilo. So who knows what that was? I did do a fair bit of walking, but I was really thrilled. So getting back to our detox, on a side note, obviously Nix has touched on this, but cleaning up our diet is one thing, but also cleaning up how we live, the toxins we put on our skin, in our bodies, use in our households. So just be a little bit more mindful as to what you're buying and using. And then the other important part is exercise. I think that's such an imperative part of our shed. And we encourage daily movement because we know it's a de-stressor, it's a good weight shifter. And for me, it's so important for mental health. And on that note, we have the most amazing yoga teacher, Katie Hurd, who has gifted us 2 free classes a week online, and we'll record pre-recorded classes, and then a free class in her studio in Hurlingham. And she really is just fabulous. So if you add the cost of just the yoga, you've already paid for your shed. So if
Good evening, everyone. It's very special spending time in your company alongside this awesome tribe of like-minded women. My personal journey began with an autoimmune diagnosis post-children, which I refused conventional medicine for, with some raised eyebrows from the medical fraternity. And I explored how dietary change could work, and work it did. I came to realize that our bodies have an innate ability to heal themselves, and I knew in my gut that there was something causing my symptoms, where all disease starts, in the gut. And this led me on a journey of discovery and study. I love the power of being an advocate for my own health because nobody knows my body better than I do. My interest in food has been part of my life since the You magazine started printing recipes back in the 80s, and I subjected my family to my concoctions. I went on to study food technology, which is essentially processing food. And then I went on to train as a chef at Ballymaloe Cookery School in Ireland, which Nick's mentioned. So after this health scare episode, I was set on a path of learning, and I trained at the Online Institute for Integrative Nutrition based in New York, which opened my eyes to a life of balance in every area of our lives that feeds us. They didn't only speak of food, they speak of primary food and secondary food, and amazingly enough, the primary food is everything else that feeds us, from sleep to relationships, exercise, spiritual, career, finance, etc. And secondary food being the food on our plates. So over the next 4 weeks, we'll be looking at our circle of life, which is our primary food, and working out where our imbalances lie in our primary food, which essentially then deconstructs our cravings, which we have on our plate. That's why when we take time to shift with the seasons like we're doing in the spring shed, it's best to detox holistically in all areas of our lives, as each area has a knock-on effect on the next. We need to set achievable intentions in order to build self-trust. And once we have self-trust, we gain momentum and are able to habit stack these changes, which become a lifestyle. The minute we make goals that are unachievable, we don't trust ourselves and we give up. So building self-trust from the start is imperative. An accountability buddy is always good to have to check in with to ensure that you stick to your end of the bargain. We know the saying, you are what you eat, but we are also how we sleep. And sleep deprivation has become an epidemic. Sleep is not an empty time. It's a time of intense neurological activity, a rich time of body renewal, memory consolidation, brain and neurochemical cleansing, and cognitive maintenance. Getting enough sleep enhances the quality of every minute we spend with our eyes open. I'm on a diet, or I've started my fitness routine, are often heard in conversation, but when do we ever hear people say I'm prioritizing my sleep? When sleep is right up there with one of the pillars of health. Getting enough sleep is just as important as good nutrition, physical activity, and wearing your seatbelt. But most people underestimate their need for sleep. That's why sleep is our most underrated health habit. I think sleep is the first thing that goes out the window when we've got too much stress and too much work. And a lack of sleep also has a major impact on our ability to regulate our weight. I'm sure you've heard that. People who get more sleep produce less of our hunger hormone, which increases our appetite. And if we're sleep deprived, we have lower levels of the hormone, which lowers our appetite. So in other words, cutting back on sleep is a fantastic way to gain weight. A neurotransmitter that normally stimulates physical activity and energy output is reduced when we are sleep deprived. And sleep loss is associated with insulin resistance. So you can see how everything just connects to everything. We get dramatic spikes of insulin the following day after losing 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Autoimmune diseases go through the roof with short sleepers, and mood disorders are rampant. The bottom line is if we're not well rested, we're not healthy. Historically, sleep changed with the invention of the light bulb. One of the most profound changes in human life over the last 1,000 years is that we've moved indoors and we have light at night. So perhaps there are benefits to load shedding at night. We are consumers of information, food, oxygen, and light. We absorb all kinds of light through our skin. A lot of food is junk food. Lots of information is junk information. And artificial light is poor quality, and we are overexposed to LAN, light at night. All of this consumption is transferred into energy. And when we overconsume all this, we overconsume energy. It's a model for understanding chronic inflammation. The energy literally eats us up. All of this excessive energy we consume keeps us hyped. And hyperarousal is a concept linked to insomnia and sleeplessness. So in a nutshell, people who don't sleep properly are excessively energized at night. We need to hit the brakes before the car's in the garage. We need to know how to slow down. So during the Spring Shed, we'll be setting intentional, achievable goals and giving tips on how to get our sleep back to where it should be. Another healthy life hack that is overlooked is proper hydration. Our bodies use and lose water all day long by digesting, detoxing, waste elimination by sweat, urine, and stool. Drinking caffeinated drinks, eating refined sugars, stress, and breathing all deplete us of water. Our brains and bodies are also use our water supply to restore, recover, and detox our bodies while we sleep. So metabolic waste accumulates overnight. That's why our urine can sometimes be super concentrated in the morning, which is a sign that we are waking dehydrated. Water is essential for optimal health, and oftentimes feeling off is linked to dehydration. So if you think how much our bodies are made of water and how many critical processes in our body rely on water, imagine how much is not working if we don't hydrate properly, leading to untold damage. So in the Spring Shed, we'll be adding in more water and crowding out the dehydrating agents. We'll show you how to calculate how much water is optimum for your bio-individual body. We can live without food for weeks, without water for days, and without air for seconds. Oxygen is the #1 most important nutrient. The oxygen content of air used to be 30%, it's now 21%, and with pollution, it's 15%. In the Spring Shed, we'll give you tips on how to improve your air and oxygen intake. And then moving on to skin, which Nick's touched on. Skin is our largest organ, and our brain is arguably the most important organ, and the two sit in close proximity to each other where the face is concerned. So it's good to be mindful of what is in the products we layer on our faces twice a day. In a perfect world, we should only put on our skin what we'd put in our body. As much as we're aware that we should read our food labels, we certainly need to read our beauty product labels too. So in the Spring Shed, we'll encourage you to audit your makeup bag and toiletry bag, and while we're at it, the cleaning product cupboard. We'll highlight which ingredients to watch out for and avoid. So you might want to write this down in preparation for next week, but if you could begin your day with warm water and a drop of doTERRA's citrus essential oil or a slice of organic lemon, to try and drink at least 1 liter of water a day for starters. You'll be needing to drink more than that, but if you're not used to drinking water, then just start with with a liter rather. Cut down on your liquid sugars, caffeine and alcohol. So what I like to say is we want to add in and crowd out rather than cut out. So add in more water, and when you do that, you'll have 1 less cup of coffee, 1 less liquid sugar. And that's just how we naturally crowd out the bad and add in the good. Try and get at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep if you're able to. I think in the shed we'll just try and get you to do baby steps. If you're a bad sleeper, go to bed 10 minutes earlier, but we'll guide you through that. And small acts like this, when multiplied, can transform your body and your life. Community is part of our primary food, so we hope you'll be joining us for the 2023 edition of the Spring Shed. Thank you. Over to you, Didi.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see everyone who's come to join us, and we are excited to do our second shed. And I guess to begin with my story, it's a bit similar to actually Nikki and Sally's story, that from my 20s, what I believe is that I was overexposed to strong medication from a young age. We had a fantastic doctor, I believe, but I think he just gave us too much strong medication at a young age. And by the time I was 20, I had my first hospitalization of pneumonia. And I think my body had just gotten to start rejecting Western medication, as I call it. And that led me to my first appointment with a naturopath. So at around the age of 20, then I saw a naturopath, and his bedside manners firstly were different. And the way in which he examined me. He looked at my nails, my hair, my skin. He asked about my bowel movement, and he also asked about my diet. And also what interested me is about how he asked about my emotional state. And so no doctor that I had seen up to that point in my life had taken that view of looking at me holistically, but not only about the symptoms that I presented. And so that led me to seeing how it's so important that you see yourself and see yourself as whole instead of a fragmented form. And so fast forward, then 2010, between the period of 2010, 2013, I struggled with my health again. And because I feel that seed was already planted in my early 20s of seeking help in the natural way, after failing, after many attempts of seeing a lot of physicians, a lot of specialists, and I had grown eczema, which was in my insides of my elbows. It was growing onto my neck and creeping onto my face. I then decided to try out going to India to an Ayurvedic and yoga retreat, where they really looked at everything holistically. And yes, they explained that it's also not an overnight. At the time, I only had 10 days. My boys were on midterm break. And they said to me, we don't do miracles here. The minimum we can do and how we can assist you is actually 21 days. And so they began my journey and staying with them for a whole month, actually not even 21 days, and realizing that this form of healing, which is the natural way and leaning on Mother Earth, requires patience, it requires mindfulness, and doesn't only look at one aspect of your life, but approaches the human being holistically. And Sally and Nikki have already touched on it, that sleep is important, bowel movement is important, movement is important, hydration is important, and all that. Also, genes are important. What the doctors that I had seen, I feel that they had neglected was the history, my genetics, that we, from both sides of my family, there's chronic sinusitis, there's chronic asthma, and all that. As if you look at the link, sinusitis then leads to eczema and all that. And so having this approach now opened me up in a different way of seeing myself now as whole, my mind, body, and soul connected, and also what I put into my body. And so starting to see and develop a love of food in a different way, of seeing food as medicine, not just as food, and really looking at that rainbow in my plate in a more mindful way, that perhaps the spinach is bringing iron that I need into my body, and all different, and enjoying even the fruits and vegetables that I necessarily didn't like. I mean, if my sister's on the call, but my mother used to actually have a difficult time with me, and my oldest is the one who comes before me. I'm the youngest of 5, because we never used to want to eat our veggies. I wanted to just eat plain food, and as young kids do. I think everybody who's got young kids will relate. And so to now move into liking and enjoying my vegetables has been really something, because it's the education, being educated enough to understand what this does to your body. So through this shade, what we want to do is to realign you and slowly build you into just establishing habits that are going to be lasting. And it's almost going to be a stacking of these habits. So to be gentle with ourselves, that perhaps maybe we don't like the greens or whatever, but seeing it in a different way, befriending the food, if I can put it that way. So it's going to be an exciting journey, and also movement. And I also want to correct, Nikki said that in my introduction that I'm a vegetarian. I do prefer mostly vegetarian, but I call myself a flexi eater, because at times I do believe that I do need a bit of meat. So I've gone through many periods where I only eat vegetarian, but I also know now to listen to my body. So the encouragement is that we should start listening more into our bodies, what they tell us, and also know that we are all unique. No one person is the same. And also our journeys are unique and our circumstances are unique. So we're going to bring this shed in a way that it's so inclusive of everyone's journey and the part of their life that they're in. So for example, if you have a big birthday party coming up, perhaps, instead of having a glass of wine, maybe have a glass of wine, half a glass, and dilute the other part. So we're going to just bring little hacks and little tips for you along the way that are beneficial. And also know that in seeing yourself in a holistic way, you're going to start feeling better. You're going to start getting more energy. And if you do that, being patient with yourself and reintroducing or introducing a healthier habits into your lifestyle is going to be beneficial in the long run. I like this saying by Hippocrates, and he says, before you heal someone, ask him if he's willing to give up the things that make him sick. So for me, the things that made me sick were antibiotics, unfortunately. There is room for antibiotics, but I don't believe that there's a need for antibiotics all the time. I know what I'm willing to put into my body. Now that I've chosen and I'm wiser, I know what I put into my body is able to sustain me and keep me moving. I don't like the word exercise. I also think it's punitive, but movement. So bringing any type of movement into your day, introducing it from tomorrow, even if it's 15 minutes a day, walking, yoga, Pilates, whatever type of movement. Within our 2-year practice, when we studied mindfulness, we were taught mindfulness yoga. I find that the days when I'm a bit tired and feeling sluggish, just laying on my mat and doing my mindfulness yoga brings such spaciousness towards me. And that after that, my energy levels are up and I'm able to carry on with my day. So James Clear in Atomic Habits says, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as we repeat them. So as we stack these habits, put that in your mind, that by stacking up these daily habits, all that we're going to bring through the 4 weeks, that you're going to start seeing that improvement, even if it's 1%, but it will accumulate. So what will this shed take of you? What will happen? What do you need to bring? You need to bring some self-discipline. So, and if the word self-discipline also sounds punitive, perhaps also looking at it as to reframe it as discipline to destiny, and seeing the importance of self-discipline and realizing whatever it is you want to achieve through this shed. So, and we all know that discipline teaches us, regardless of our circumstances, it is our ability to commit to consistent action and maintain the focus that shapes the destiny that we want. So whether you want to lose weight, and as we said, this is not about the weight, but this is about a holistic approach to how we shift our energies and how building in good habits. And embrace the obstacles. Life is not the same. The impermanence of life is always there. Things may happen, but it's up to you then to see these obstacles maybe as an opportunity. Maybe they're not the stepping stones to your own resilience and your personal development that you want. So, and then cultivating inner strength. It's not easy, especially if you're amongst others who are maybe drinking. I know from tomorrow, literally, there's the F&B art fair activities happening in Johannesburg. I'm going to be out with others, but I know my big why I'm doing this shit. It's for my own health, to shift the energy, the unstuck energy, to bring in, for me, the spring time feels like a new year. So it's a renewal for myself, renewal of my body, renewal of my cells. So that's my big why I'm doing this shit. Then also let go, focus on what's within your control. There's some things that are not within your control, but what's within your control as you embark on this journey. You can also, as Sally said, you can already start by shifting your sleep time to maybe 10 minutes earlier. So bringing those little hacks that can be sustainable in the long run and that can be beneficial. Perhaps swapping your fizzy drink for a glass of water, and perhaps even the alcohol for a glass of water. And if maybe that's not, we've got speaking. And then consistency. This is it's key. In anything that we do, we need some consistency. So even if we don't feel like it, just roll onto that mat, that yoga mat, and do the exercise. I promise you, your mood will shift. You'll be more energized after that, and you'll feel much more enthusiastic to get through your day. Then also bringing in a sense of mindfulness and ease with yourself as we go through this process. We're not trying to punish ourselves, but we're trying to actually befriend ourselves and our bodies. So stopping and taking a few deep breaths through your day, or drinking water before you even start eating. So just bring in little hacks through the day that are going to be beneficial for you, because sometimes we end up eating much more if we don't take that first glass of water. And even when we eat, seeing if you can just slow down the chewing, if you can chew a lot more before we even swallow. So bringing that sense of mindfulness and allowing curiosity as well as we do this. And lastly, find the purpose, as I explained my why. Find the purpose of your meaning of why you're doing this shit. Whether it's to realign yourself, to reset through this detox, to revitalize, or to add more years to your life, whatever it may be, just bring that sense of purpose and meaning each day as we wake up. And we will help you along through our WhatsApp group each morning as we post inspiration, as we hold you and guide you, give you recipes, give you tips, habit stacking. We will do all that so that if you don't have an accountability partner, we all are your accountability partner. So we can't wait to start with you next week. And I'll hand over to Nikki Elwood.
Thank you, Didi. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Let me just pin myself so you can see me. So I hope that you have a clearer insight into the shed. So Didi will be doing a few mindful movement practices. They're recordings that you can play and do at any time. I'll be doing, we're mixing it up between all of us, but there'll be some mindfulness practices and bringing in some heart coherence and visualization of where we're wanting to be, how we're wanting to feel, touching into that feeling before it's even here. For those of you who want to know a little bit more, there's a wonderful podcast interview by Jay Shetty of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think it's actually the third time they've been chatting. I've just been listening to, it's Jay Shetty's podcast On Purpose. And really a lot of the stuff that he's talking about is exactly what we're going to be doing in the shed. So we'll have these small practices that you can listen to at any time of day, but they're really, anyone can do it. Even if one thinks one can't meditate, one doesn't know how to do it. This is very simple, accessible stuff that we're going to be presenting. And as this analogy came up in this podcast, it's a little bit like riding a bicycle. So no one like once you can ride a bicycle, no one asks how many times you fell off in learning. We're all going to fall off the bicycle, but it's actually about getting back on. And as you get better and better, you fall off less and less. And I went for a cycle in the forest this morning and fell off and got back up. But we're going to all fall off, and it's not about not falling off. It's about getting better, and then the times that we fall off will become less and less in due course. So yeah, so we're going to be shedding a lot in this time, but the real value isn't necessarily in what we're shedding. The real value is in what we're gaining, and there's going to be amazing tools and amazing then also collaborations. We've mentioned some a little bit about the juice fast. The juice fasting, if you want to go with that, about the yoga, we are partnering with Breathwork Africa. There's a number of other discounts. We had a lot of discounts codes last year. We're not going to do as many as last year. We're going to do a few bigger ones that we feel really make a difference. So I'm just going to share my screen again now and share, just for those of you who want to use oils or to have an idea of the oils. This is our mini daily rituals. So we'll start the morning, just to give you an idea, with a drop of lemon or a drop of wild orange in warm water. And then we like to sip on a bottle of Smart and Sassy, which is really good for sort of energy metabolism and weight loss and things, or Meta Power, which is the newer oil. So again, if you don't have these, you can use squeezing lemon into water. But this is what we do with the oils. And then, so that's a daily ritual that we do. And then we encourage people to do a morning capsule of oils. Depending on which oils you have, it might be, and we'll put this more clearly in the shed. I'm just going through these: copaiba or frankincense, depending on which kit you got, which they're all very good oils for regulating, helping to bring our body back to homeostasis, for cellular regeneration and renewal. Zengest is amazing for digestion. It's very, very helpful for any feelings of bloating, constipation, all these difficult things. Talking of that, we're also going to have a little video on constipation and tools and tricks and things to help with that, because it's such a prevalent problem amongst women. And then either Smart and Sassy or the new or Meta Power, depending on what you've got. So we put these in a capsule in the morning, and we start the morning with that. That's for people who are fairly new to oils. That's a lovely one to do. And then, sorry, let me go down to here first. If you've got oils and you've been using oils internally for a while, you might want to join us. I think all of us will be doing our Skinny Jeans protocol. If you haven't used oils before, you must rather start with the morning capsule that I recommended earlier, but this is a Skinny Jeans that many of us with oils will be doing. And then just to go back to this, if you don't have oils and you want to actually get started with oils and use oils, we've come up with this little Spring Shed detox kit. And so you can chat to whoever invited you to this call to ask them how you get these oils, and they will give you a link, and they'll tell you how to just order them. But we've got the lemon in water and for starting your day. We've got the Zengest again and one can have these directly in water. You don't have to do them into a capsule. Zengest, which is for so many of the digestive issues, the Meta Power for the blood sugar balancing, and then copaiba soft gels, which are very good for inflammation, but also very good for anxiety. So we often talk about the oils with side benefits. So one can take this to help with stress, to help with sleep, to help with inflammation. I've even given them to our kids when they're quite going through some allergies, because it just brings the body back to homeostasis. So that is for if you want to introduce those oils. We're going to be talking a little bit more. We've touched on Meta Power. We won't go into this now, but there is a whole system that doTERRA brought out with the Metabolic Blend, which is the oil that we talked about. And metabolic assist, which helps to decrease the glucose spikes and helps with the insulin levels, and then an incredible collagen, which has got 12 types of collagen in it. But that's kind of more for the second half of the shed. Those of us with oils will be doing that, and who have MetaPower will be doing that. You can always get MetaPower slightly later on in the shed, but that's just to tell you about how we use them and to take them, just because we've touched on it here. And then I just want to go on. So we've touched on this again. We'll put this into our WhatsApp group as we're just getting people admitted now. Depending, please send us a proof of payment if you can, because it makes it so much quicker and easier to admit you to the spring shed. And then we're going to post this as a reminder. But this is all stuff that we've touched on, starting with warm water and some lemon in warm water, a litre of water a day, cutting down on alcohol, caffeine, and fizzy drinks, introducing a little more movement. I also don't like exercise, the idea of exercise. I used to do exercise to keep fit. Now I do exercise or movement to get out of my mind and into my body and to regulate my stress. Reducing the intake of some of our inflammatory foods like red meat, poultry, and dairy, and sugar and refined carbohydrates, processed, packaged, fried, and fast foods. Eating more whole natural foods, getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep, getting our head in the game, like finding our why and our reason why we're doing this, and creating a positive, curious, and comfortable space where you can reap the benefits. So that's just we've got some special offers. Those will be populated. So if you want to, I'm going to be placing the reporting of this onto my website. Probably under a tab that says Spring Shed or otherwise Essential Oils. So you can have this recording. They'll have the Luna link. Otherwise, you can write down this Luna link. It's or we'll be sharing it through the same ways that you probably heard about this call. And there's the Luma link already on my blog, which is share. Are you ready to shed your schmutz, your stuff? There's that link if you want to register. And then, as I was just saying, please, it's very helpful for us if you send us a proof of payment, because then we can admit you straight away without having to wait for payments to clear. So I think that is all. Just thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing and just see if there are any questions in the chat. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Cold or warm water? Yeah, preferably warm. Can be warm or cold, but I also like it warm, but not boiling. If I have it too hot, I'll put a little bit of cold water and then some boiling water. The banking details, so when you do that link, you'll get an email. There's an automatic email that has the banking details, and otherwise, contact the person who invited you to the call and they'll send you the banking details. Any other questions?
Nikki, perhaps it's worth saying that we should also check the junk mail, because perhaps that if they're not on your mailing list, because I've had a few questions and I've said perhaps they must check the junk email. Yes. But if not, we will also send them.
Yeah, exactly. I think I also had a few saying, well, they hadn't seen the email, and I think it can go into the junk mail. So please do keep an eye on that. And then it's not too late to invite others to join you. It's we really hope this is a wonderful thing to do together, to share. It's not too late to get oils, and it's not too late to invite others to join you. Anything else?
I think we're good. I think the only thing I forgot to mention in my talk was the fabulous spa that we've partnered with, Pelo Umwe, that will be offering a great discount as well. So as you move and you have some aches and pains, that you can go get your massage. They also have state-of-the-art equipment there, ozone machines, all sorts of machines that you can enjoy there.
So we look forward to seeing you. Thanks, Didi. And we look forward to seeing you in the spring shed and shedding our stuff, but gaining even more. Not releasing and feeling lighter. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just end the meeting now.